Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I want to talk about when people are jealous of your pretty privilege. I've noticed that a lot of people like to come online and complain, and whenever they're complaining about pretty privilege, have you ever noticed that most of their complaints are very male centered? So they will say, men only want a light skinned woman, or they only want a skinny woman, or only the girls who are pretty are getting drinks at the bar. And I've noticed that usually the women who make those comments, those are the women who wanted to have pretty privilege so that they can use it to attract a man. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. But one thing I've learned is that, first of all, every single person on this earth has advantages and disadvantages. So for the people who get mad at me and say that that I'm somehow bragging, or that, by talking about pretty privilege, it's bragging. Have you ever noticed that you're only allowed to talk about pretty privilege if you don't have it? Anytime a pretty woman or a privileged person starts speaking up about their experiences with their privilege, suddenly everybody wants to tell them to shut the fuck up and do your makeup.
And she should have just sat there and put on her makeup and shut the fuck up.
And then people will say that by engaging in your privilege, that you are perpetuating racism, colorism, texturism, featureism, fat phobia. So people will try to guilt you into becoming this social justice warrior. And it's like, no, I didn't create this world that I live in. Every single privilege that people have is based on something negative. So if you are rich, yes, it's based on capitalism, which is a system that exploits people who are at the bottom so that the people at the top can have more money. So are those people supposed to just give up their billions? No. For the people who complain and say, you only became a model because you're skinny, or you only got that opportunity because you have curly hair, or because you're mixed race, people cannot help how they were born. People cannot help the society that we live in. And so if we're already living in a society that is hyper individualistic and it's very capitalistic, people are trying to compete for resources, or they're trying to get ahead in life, why would I then dismiss the few advantages I may have in order to prove that I have solidarity with people who are below me? No, I didn't create the messed up system that we live in. And what people don't realize is that we are all human beings at the end of the day. Everyone is trying to survive, everyone is trying to thrive in this world. And so the premise of this channel is talking about privilege stacking. So, what privileges do you have access to, and what privileges do you not have access to? And also, you want to ask yourself, what privilege is most important to me? Is it pretty privilege? Is it being pretty in the eyes of black men? Is it being pretty in the eyes of Hollywood? Is it making money off of my beauty? So what type of pretty privilege is the most important to me? And what am I willing to do to attain that privilege? Because I believe that some privileges you are born with and other privileges you attain over time. So for example, let's say you're not very skinny right now. Let's say you're like overweight. You can attain thin privilege over time by working on yourself. Let's say you're not educated right now. You're not very smart. You're not leveled up in terms of money. You can work towards attaining that privilege as time goes on. So I also believe that privilege is not just how a person was born. Like, oh, because you were born white, then you automatically have access to all of these special privileges. No, there are tons of white people who were born white, but they also have things that are working against them, such as poverty or lack of education. And by the way, I am not trying to diminish other people's struggles, but on this channel, we don't want to struggle. We don't want to live our lives as victims 24/7. We don't want to just accept our place at the bottom of society, or, try to prove to others that we're this good person and not take advantage of any opportunities. No, I say this all the time. I didn't come on this channel to be fucking Mother Teresa. I didn't come on here to be Gandhi. I didn't come on this channel to be Martin Luther King. So no, I'm not going to give you some kumbaya bullshit on this channel. I am going to talk about things that people care about. Society rewards beauty. Society rewards things like wealth and status. And so I want to talk about the pretty privilege spectrum and what part of the spectrum you fall on. So I just did a video talking about the decentering men spectrum, and I talked about the different nuances of decentering men. And I want to do the same thing when it comes to the pretty privilege conversation. What do you want to use your pretty privilege for? Do you want to use it to attract a certain man? So there are some women who they want to attract a white man. And so they don't want to have like a really thick booty. They want to have like a very slim body because they feel like that's more popular as far as the beauty standard amongst those types of men. What beauty standard are you willing to submit to? Because that's another thing. People won't admit that whatever they're calling pretty, everybody is submitting to some sort of beauty standard. So you can say all day, oh no, my beauty standard comes 100% from within. No, everybody's beauty standard is still influenced by someone or something. Everybody might have a different beauty standard, and there's going to be nuance to it because beauty is subjective, but your beauty standards have been influenced by something. So for some women, they want to be very thin. Okay, well, that tells me that maybe you grew up in the early 2000s, maybe you're a part of Gen X, maybe you grew up in the 90s, maybe you have a background in traditional modeling or something like that. Maybe you naturally look more like that aesthetic or you like that aesthetic. Maybe you were influenced by Asian beauty standards. I see a lot of Asian beauty standards that seem to line up with my own because I noticed I also like a very, very slim body. I like kind of neotenous beauty, kind of neotenous features. And so it's important to be honest with yourself and admit to yourself, okay, what beauty standard, which one is my favorite one? Which one do I feel like I've been influenced by? And you don't have to tell other people what that standard is. But what I don't like is when people try to shame me because I have a different beauty standard than them. So if I say that Ice Spice is pretty and then people want to argue and say, oh no, she's ugly, like you're a colorist because you think she's pretty. You're just saying that because she's light skinned. You're just saying that because she's mixed. You're just saying that because she looks like you. Okay, well, if I decide to make my personal beauty standard women who look more like myself, I actually don't see anything wrong with that. I'm not offended by other women having pretty privilege or thinking that they're pretty. I'm not threatened by another woman's pretty privilege as long as I'm getting what I want in life. And so I've noticed that the women who are threatened by your pretty privilege, they're threatened because they're not getting what they want in life. They are not living the soft life. They are struggling. They're not getting the attention they want. They're not getting the validation they want. It's kind of like how that one girl made the video talking about how she didn't have pretty privilege and that sucks. And she talked about how the part of not having it that sucked was the fact that she walked into the bar and no guys looked at her or nobody walked up to her, no one tried to talk to her. So that tells me that she is one of those people who revolves pretty privilege around men or around having dating options. And that's fine. Like you should use your beauty. You should use your beauty to attract a higher quality man if that is what you are seeking after. But if you are the type of person who has, I guess I would call it a male-centered beauty, guess what? Men are going to be able to influence your perception of yourself. So then you have to start thinking to yourself, okay, the type of man that I like, what do those types of men tend to like? What do those types of men tend to find beautiful? And as far as that content creator, I don't know what types of men were in the bar. I don't know what types of men she liked in the past or whatever, but that is going to influence the type of pretty privilege you will be seeking after. I know that everybody likes to pretend that they're the most powerful person in the world and that like nothing from outside of themselves can influence them, but here on this channel, we're dealing with reality. I know that we should live in a society where nobody is judged based on their looks or their race, but the bottom line is we are. And then another gaslighting tactic that I've noticed that people try to use against you is, for example, let's say that you happen to think another ethnicity that is not your own. Let's say you think people from that ethnicity are beautiful and you think that they're the most beautiful people in the world. You like how their hair looks, their eyes, whatever. I've noticed that people will automatically equate that to self-hate. And it's like, well, no, just because you think that another group of people look beautiful or you think that they're the prettiest people in the world or you like that combination of features, that doesn't automatically mean that you hate your own features. And by the way, if you do hate your own features, what are you willing to do about it? So here on this channel, I don't shame people for having insecurities because an insecurity is really just a passing emotion, and insecurities come from the outside world. Insecurities come from your experiences in this world. Insecurities come from people not validating you or, bad experiences and traumas that you had. So I am not going to shame people for their insecurities. This channel is about developing the self-awareness to the point where you can admit to yourself, hey, because I'm obese, I'm going to be considered to be conventionally unattractive in terms of my body. I don't meet the popular beauty standards for what is considered beautiful for bodies. So I'm not going to be able to thrive as much in spaces where the thin women are celebrated. And that's okay. It's okay to admit to yourself the things that are hindering you or holding you back. I've noticed that different women will think different things are holding them back. But back to the pretty privilege spectrum. So, one type of pretty privilege that a lot of women seek after is pretty privilege in the eyes of the male gaze. So, if you're seeking after that, you want to ask yourself, whose gaze am I trying to get? Do I want the attention of a rich man? Do I want the attention of a man from a certain ethnicity or a man from a certain country? And if so, what are the common beauty standards amongst that type of man? The other type of pretty privilege along the spectrum is they kind of are thinking, they're thinking more about status. So these are the women who want to pursue Hollywood. They want to pursue being an influencer. They want to be seen as beautiful, not just by a man in a bar, but they want to be seen as beautiful on a worldwide scale. So they want to be able to get paid for their beauty. These are the women who they want to be celebrities, or they really care a lot about representation and celebrities looking like them, because these women are status driven with their pretty privilege. They want to walk into a room and then everybody's like, oh, she looks like so and so celebrity, or oh, she's so pretty. So she wants the social status and the social power and the special treatment from both men and women. She wants to be able to use her pretty privilege to have money. And by the way, the male-centered pretty privileged women, those are the ones who they want to use their pretty privilege to get money out of a man. And I've noticed that status-driven pretty privilege is you want to be able to get visibility in front of everyone. You want to be able to get money, you want visibility, you want notoriety. So it's more social status driven. And I'm not shaming any of these. Another part of the pretty privilege spectrum are the women who seek pretty privilege for confidence reasons. So they feel insecure when they are not pretty. They feel like they are not enough when they are not seen as pretty. And so to them, being pretty means that you are solving all of these micro insecurities. That's what I call it. So maybe you have pimples on your face, maybe you're a little bit fat, maybe you have a double chin. So you're solving all of these micro insecurities. And because of that, and because of your newfound beauty, you now have a newfound sense of confidence that's going to spill over into other areas. I talk a lot on this channel about how in order to overcome certain mental health issues, part of it is removing the trigger. So for some women, myself included, looking ugly is literally a trigger. It's a negative mental health trigger. So if I look in the mirror and I've got bags under my eyes, my teeth are yellow, like just everything looks fucked up, then yes, it is going to trigger me to be in a lower mental state. So some women, they want pretty privilege for confidence reasons and for mental health reasons. So they feel like it's one less thing that they have to worry about, or at least that's how I feel. Whenever I look my best, I don't think as much about, oh my God, I look bad from this angle. My mind is not cluttered up with all of those insecure thoughts. And so for some people, having pretty privilege, it's literally taking away all of those thoughts in your head about how your teeth are messed up, your pimples are showing. So it actually frees up a lot of mental space so that you can pursue other things. Another thing I talk about on this channel is kind of the concept of dark femininity or dark psychology. So another part of the pretty privilege spectrum, in my opinion, is being pretty for revenge. So using your beauty as a flex. So these are the women who maybe they have like a revenge body after they broke up with some guy or something, or maybe you were the ugly duckling in school. And so now you have blossomed and you are soaking up every ounce of that pretty privilege that you have. You are relishing in it. You enjoy that. And by the way, I'm not shaming any of these because I've done all of these myself. But these are the people who they like their pretty privilege because they're doing it as a power move. So they like the power and the dominance that they attain by having that beauty, because I talk a lot on this channel about how beauty is a form of social power, because when you're beautiful, you're more visible. So you're the one who gets noticed in the gym. You're the one who gets noticed in the office. You're the one who is more likely to be noticed on social media. If you look like a certain celebrity who is known for being beautiful, you can play that to your advantage. So some people seek after pretty privilege as a power move, as a form of revenge, and also almost as a shield, because I will say that the people who don't have pretty privilege, they over exaggerate the shield that beauty gives you. But I will say that having pretty privilege, it does help shield you from rejection, or it helps shield you from insecurities, because if you get rejected by a guy, or like some other girls call you ugly or something, you are less likely to be affected by that, because deep down inside, you know that you are not ugly. You know that you're beautiful. You have already experienced all of the rewards and all of the lifestyle that comes along with being pretty. And so I will say that women who have pretty privilege and they know they're pretty, they're going to be less likely to be affected by random like incels online who say, "Oh, you're ugly." You know, they're less likely to believe that, because one person on the internet saying they're ugly doesn't erase 15 years of pretty privilege that they've had. So I will say that some people, they use their pretty privilege as a form of power, they use it as a form of revenge, and they also use it as a shield. So it's almost like this social shield for your own self-confidence, or for your own sense of status. And like I said, this is not a bad thing. Just like how people protect their wealth and people have security cameras and stuff like that, women protect their beauty as well. This is why we have a billion-dollar industry, a beauty industry. You know, we have people who, they stay in the gym, they pay for gym memberships, they only eat certain foods, they discipline themselves, and they literally will refuse to eat certain foods for the rest of their lives in order to preserve their beauty, because they enjoy the power that comes along with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I promote that on this channel. I do promote seeking after whatever form of power you can have, because feeling powerless in life, that is a negative mental health trigger. Who wants to feel like they're at the bottom of society? Who wants to feel powerless? I know I don't. So for some women, they seek after pretty privilege and beauty because it helps them to feel powerful, because it really is powerful. It's a form of social power for women. This world worships beauty. Other women seek after pretty privilege for social proof. So for example, let's say you're a fitness influencer, or you're doing something to where your beauty, it can help people's perception of you. So maybe you live in a really nice neighborhood with a lot of other women who are pretty, and maybe you feel like being beautiful helps you to kind of blend in more, it helps you to fit in more. You feel like you are able to navigate in different spaces because you already have that baseline of having beauty. So you can walk into a classy restaurant with, you know, and not be as dressed up as other people, and you still feel like you fit in. You don't have that inferiority complex, because your beauty gives you a type of social proof. Because people associate beauty with wealth. Like if a woman looks really pretty and she's like really done up, she has like straight white teeth, she kind of looks very glamorous and stuff like that. People tend to associate physical beauty with things like wealth and status and, you know, having a better dating life. People stereotype you as having a better life when you are pretty. So some women will play into that stereotype, and they want to be perceived as having a better life. Why would I want to be perceived as having a fucked up life? No, I'd rather have positive stereotypes working in my favor than a bunch of negative stereotypes. So some women will use their pretty privilege as a form of social proof. And I guess that kind of ties into social power. But what I'm trying to say is that every person who talks about pretty privilege, whether they have it or whether they complain about not having it, the people who are complaining about not having it, they're not actually complaining about pretty privilege. They're complaining about not living the lifestyle of a pretty woman. They're complaining about not having the social power of a pretty woman. They're complaining about not having the dating options of that woman, or not having the media opportunities and the influence and the visibility of the person who has pretty privilege. So I want you guys, whenever you see someone complaining about not having XYZ privilege, it's never about just the privilege. It's about what that privilege grants you and what that privilege does not allow them to have, because they feel like by not having that privilege, they are shut out of visibility. They're shut out of having a sense of power. But you guys know on this channel that I do talk about how beauty often is a choice, and how when it comes to privilege, you only have two options. Either number one, change yourself to attain that privilege. So yes, that means purchasing a new face. If you are Kylie Jenner or something like that, and you feel like your face is literally going to shut you out of certain opportunities. So yes, for some women, they will go as far as purchasing a new face, purchasing a new body. Or there's option two, which is you have no choice but to admit that you will always be on the bottom in that particular area, or you'll never have access to that privilege. So that door will always be closed for you. Those are the only two options. Either change yourself to attain the privilege, or stay right where you're at and just be mad about it, or just give up on it. And a lot of people like to talk crap about people who spend a lot of money to like change themselves, or they go out of their way to do all of these things to glam themselves up. Maybe they spend a long time growing out their hair, or like I said, they refuse to eat certain foods for years so that they can maintain a slim figure. But the same people who make fun of you for pursuing privilege are the same people that would gladly trade places with you if they could. Another thing that people don't realize is that everybody is always seeking privilege. Everyone is always seeking privilege, benefiting from some sort of privilege, or they are bestowing privilege upon someone else. So, by you purchasing that brand new BMW, why did you purchase a BMW? Well, because you know that by driving around in a BMW, not only will you feel good and you will associate yourself with more luxury, but you will be benefiting from the privilege of classist people looking at you and kind of like looking up to you, or kind of putting you on a social pedestal, or the status that comes along with having that beautiful car, with having that beautiful item. So for all of the people who try to shame you for enjoying your privileges, they really don't have a leg to stand on. So the people that say, oh, well, you only got those opportunities because you're mixed. You only got those opportunities because you have light skin privilege. And it's like, as long as you are not actively hurting anybody else, as long as you are not actively trying to destroy someone else, then yes, you have a right to benefit from whatever privileges you do have access to. Because at the end of the day, everybody else is doing it. Why is it that everybody else in the whole world, they can benefit from whatever privileges they have access to, but suddenly when it's you, you're not allowed to do it? No, I don't have to live my life as a perpetual victim in order to prove that I'm not racist, or in order to prove that I have solidarity with certain groups of people, or in order to prove that I'm not fat phobic, or I don't think I'm better. No, I get to decide how I want to live my life. I get to decide what level of status I want to pursue, and it's going to be different for everyone. Some people want widespread social status, so they care about being in Hollywood and stuff. Other people, they just want to attract a husband or something, and then they just want to live their lives. But what do you ladies think? What part of the pretty privilege spectrum are you on? And have you ever had people try to shame you out of living in your pretty privilege? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.